Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today we're wrapping up all the books I read in February, and I did manage to pick up some momentum last month, so I do have a few books to talk about this time. The first two were both arcs that I read for an arc vlog, so I'll link that up in the cards above if you want to hear my more long-form thoughts. But the first of the two was Greedy by Callie Kazemi. This one is about Ed, who is a British expat living in Tokyo, who's kind of amassed a gambling debt to the Yakuza, and takes up a sketchy job as a private chef to try and pay off that debt. Things are rather sinister, though. As I said, it's a sketchy job, there's a lot of red flags, and Ed kind of continues down this path as things spiral further and further out of his control. I had a good time with this one. I gave it 3.5 stars. I think that Ed is a really interesting main character. I liked the way he was kind of constantly torn between being unsettled and disgusted, but also being like really envious of his employer's kind of wealth and luxury. And I think that the main antagonist is also really interesting, that she's pretty nuanced. She's evil for sure, but like also has some positive characteristics that make it make sense that Ed kind of goes along with what's happening for so long. I think that the pacing of the book is pretty good too. There's a bit of a slow start as the book is setting up the stakes, and then like 25 to 85% is really great. It's really engaging. There's lots of creepy stuff happening. Ed is like building friendships with other people working at the estate, and he's picking up all of these like little clues that something creepy is going on, and I really liked that portion of the book. I kind of tore through that piece. I think 85% the book kind of hits a brick wall and drops all of its themes on the ground. It's talking about greed and abuse of power, and I think it kind of fails at the final hurdle. We end up with a lot of exposition dumping right at the very end, and I think that the book, rather than concluding, it just kind of stops. The ending just kind of stops the book, but it doesn't really wrap anything up in any satisfying way. So ending fell a little bit flat for me, but overall I think the reading experience was really good, and this one's probably worth picking up if the premise sounds interesting to you. The other arc that I read for that video was The Red Winter by Cameron Sullivan, which I then obviously pre-ordered a copy of because I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 5 stars. This is following an immortal monster hunter named Sebastian Grave as he is returning to Gvaudan 20 years after he helped fight a creature known only as the Beast of Gvaudan. This is based on a real bit of history where some sort of creature was attacking people in the French countryside for like 2 years, and they had this big hunt for it. They still, to this day, do not know exactly what the creature was. There's a bunch of different theories based on, like, witness accounts and an actual autopsy that took place. Not an autopsy. Necropsy? I can't remember. They killed the thing that they think was the beast and, like, dissected it, basically. And Cameron Sullivan takes that bit of history and kind of runs with it in Sebastian's story, turning it into a sort of occult magic thing that I thought was really fun. This is, I would say, dark, queer historical fantasy done really well. I really liked our main character, Sebastian. He's quite morally gray. He'll do terrible things, but also really kind things, and sometimes that's in the same 5 minutes. And he's somebody who is both very selfish, but also very selfless, and will go out of his way to help people even when it hurts his own interests. And I really liked the way that sort of, like, dueling impulse in him would, like, conflict throughout the book. So we're following him across 3 timelines, actually. 4 if you count the framing narrative. There's a frame narrative that the whole thing is being written in 2013. But the book has 3 main timelines. One is what I would call its, like, real main timeline in the 1780s when he's returning to Gvaudan to see, is the beast actually back, because that's what he's been told, or is something else sinister happening there. Then there's also a 1760s timeline that's the original hunt for the Beast of Gvaudan and the events that unfolded between Sebastian and somebody else in the village. And then there's a third timeline that takes place in the 15th century that gives some foundational information about the conflict that is unraveling in the hunt for the Beast of Gvaudan. So I really enjoyed this. All of the timelines were interesting. There was never a point where I felt like the book dragged. I think that you're always getting new important information and getting little pieces of the puzzle. And despite that, even though it's giving you all those clues, I still found myself, like, shocked and surprised at every different turn. There'd be like pieces that I had partially guessed, but I wouldn't have guessed like the whole twist it was going to take. And I just really enjoyed the way that this kept like changing direction. It kept me on my toes. I really loved the characters. There's like a doomed romance in the middle of this that I really enjoyed. I thought that was really structured well. You know it's doomed from the start, so I was really impressed knowing the way it was going to end. that the author was able to make me care so much about that romance. I was genuinely ugly sobbing when I finished this book, and I just had an absolutely fantastic time. I just love all of the characters. I think the whole thing is really well structured, and I'm so excited that the book is finally out and more people can finally read it. So after that, I felt like I needed to kind of recalibrate my internal rating system, because I felt like if I went into something else that I knew I was like probably gonna like, then I might spend a lot of time going, but it's not as good as not the Beast of Fountain. It's not as good as the Red Winter. I could be reading the Red Winter right now. So I ended up picking up a random novella that I got in from the library that I'd had on hold. It was called The Stolen Apocalypse by Jacqueline Benson. And this is a sort of prequel novella to her Raiders of the Arcana series, which is a romantic adventure series I was kind of interested in, romantic historical adventure. But I really hated the main character in this novella, so I will not be continuing the series. I think I ended up giving this 2 stars because I thought the premise was fun and some of the plot points were fun. But we're following this woman whose name I cannot remember, nor can I remember her best friend's name. But we're following her and her friend as they're going to this wedding, and the real reason they're going because it's a social obligation, and it's set in late 1800s, early 1900s, question mark. But they're going, it's a social obligation, and they're really there because the main character wants to look at an unfinished Apocalypse manuscript that the church has in its archive. But when they go to look at the manuscript, they realize that it's a copy and that the original manuscript has actually been stolen, and they realize somebody's trying to use the wedding as a cover to sell it. And they go on an adventure to rescue the manuscript. That's pretty much the plot setup. But I found the main character so grating. We have this sort of setup where we have 2 people with very opposite personalities, and those are our main characters. Our main character, the actual main character of the ongoing series, I think her name is Elle or Ellie or something, but she is super prudish. She's an academic, and she only cares about architecture and history and books, and she spends a lot of the book complaining about marriage as a legal structure, particularly at the beginning. The first 2 pages, I think she complains about marriage and is it's just a way to steal women's rights from them, 4 times in 2 pages. So I found her really grating from the start, just because I was yes, I get it, but why do we keep talking about that? I see your point of view, and I don't disagree with the argument that she's making, especially in the time period that this is, I think, supposed to be set in, but she was just really grating on me. But she's just very I'm right, you're wrong kind of a person. And then the best friend is the sort of bubbly, socially gifted, but also kind of a rebel friend. She's got a knife and a lockpick in her boot, and I generally liked her, but it felt very caricature-y between the 2 of them. And the main character is so ready to jump down people's throats about stuff, and it was making me mad. But particularly, I think that the book is aiming for a feminist bent to it. That she's very pro women's rights, and she and her friend are both suffragettes, and I think that would be interesting. But I think that her feminism, the way it's written in the book, comes across more as misandry, kind of disguised as feminism, because every time she interacted with a man, she was just ready to jump down his throat about you just think women shouldn't be allowed to be here. And it was that's not what he said, or what I would take from the implication of what he said. Particularly, there's a scene that really bothered me where the groom he's nervous about the wedding. He's a golden retriever. He is madly in love with his wife-to-be, and he's just but what if I'm not good enough? But before they have this conversation, the main character is about to die. She's about to fall out of the belfry 30 feet and hit the ground and die. And he sees this about to happen, and he's oh my God, let me help. But he says something oh my God, don't move, wait there, I'll be right there. And she's oh my God, I can't believe he thinks I don't have any brain cells. Why would he tell me not to move? It's he's panicking. He sees a woman about to die at his wedding. He's panicking, and he's trying to help. So she's just ready to jump down his throat about being sexist. And then when he gets over there, he helps her. And then he sits down and he's my wife that I'm going to marry today is so beautiful and so intelligent and so funny. And I just love her so much. What if I'm not good enough for her? What if I'm not good enough? And he's having a crisis. And she's just sitting there insulting him for getting married. She's you're part of the problem. And it really bothered me the way that she treated other people, and that I felt the way that she behaved was being painted as a feminist stance, but it really just felt like misandry the way it was written. And I'm like, that's not helpful. That's not what feminism is. And as you can tell probably by my getting more animated, it made me really mad the way she was written. So I will not be continuing on with that series. I don't mind spoiling that one scene for you. I hope that was okay with you. It was not a good book. I will not be continuing with Raiders of the Arcana series, but I generally liked the plot premise, so, like, there was that, and that's why I didn't rate it any lower than 2 stars. I still felt like it was overall fairly fun, and just would have been better with a different main character. So after I'd had that, like, recalibrating moment with The Stolen Apocalypse, I then went on to Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher, which I knew I was going to enjoy. I love everything by T. Kingfisher, but this was the first time I'd picked up one of her fantasy novels, and I had so much fun with this. We follow healer Anja, who is a poison expert, and she is requested by the king to come and help save his daughter, who is behaving as though she's been poisoned. And Anja is like, I don't know how the hell I'm going to help, and there is a lot at stake for me here, because if I screw up, what is the king going to do to my family's reputation? Because her father is a merchant who has interacted with the king before, and so she's, like, really feeling the pressure. But she goes to this, like, secluded estate and is trying to save the daughter from poison when she discovers an alternate world that might be the source of the poison and may also kill them all. And it's just really, really fun. I really love healer Anja. She's very practical. She's very, like, not quite socially inept, but, like, she's just very blunt. And so she finds that kind of a challenge throughout the book, where she's like, I need to, you know, interact delicately with these people, but that's just not the person that I am. So she's trying to figure out how to, like, navigate the social situation. She's also trying to figure out, like, what help can she actually provide? Like, can she prove that it's poison? Is it actually poison? Or is something else going on? But she's also just, like, this really passionate person who loves learning new things, and that's a really big aspect of the story, as she, like, discovers a new world and is, like, super excited to explore it and, like, learn everything she can about it. And I just really enjoyed her as a character. I thought she was really fun. I liked the directions that this took. I guessed some of the twists, but not all of them, and it kept me on my toes. And there's a really sweet romance in it as well. So this was just a super fun fantasy book, and I really enjoyed that it was, like, bringing in a little bit of horror elements. There are some really genuinely creepy segments of this book, but ultimately it was just, like, this very fun fairy tale-esque story that's clearly, I think, inspired by Snow White. So I thought that was a really fun twist on that tale. I had a great time, and I'm looking forward to reading more T. Kingfisher in March, because I have a couple of her books upcoming that I'm hoping to get to, including an arc for her newest horror book. But yeah, she just does a really great job of blending fantasy with horror in this, and I think that she's particularly gifted at creating, like, the most creepy, scary thing you can think of, and then making it friendly, which is just so, like, mind-boggling to me. I love it. It's so much fun. So that was my other 5-star for the month. So these and some ebooks are what I read in February. Let me know down in the comments below if you've read any of these and what your thoughts were on them, and let me know what your favorite thing was that you read in February. I would love to hear about it. I really hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, I hope you consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing to see what comes next. I'm currently posting at least once a week, and I hope to see you in the next video.